This story begins in a dark hallway, where you can only see a few decorative lights along the walls of the hallway. A minotaur-type monster was seen, looking at a young man who had wounds all over his body. The young man still doesn't want to give up on his life, and tries to fight back against the minotaur monster. When the monster began to rampage, the young man began to think again why he was in this situation. Right after that, a new monster appeared. A scary snake-shaped monster attacked the young man. Seo Joo-Heon, 38 years old, thought he would die today. The young man thought back to all his mistakes, and that led to 15 years ago. In 2025, tombs appeared all over the world, causing violent earthquakes upon their appearance. The relic appeared at the same time. The world began to change when it appeared. A relic is an antique object that has its own story and power. They can provide strength according to the type of relic used. Because of this, human life begins to change. Everyone began searching for the relic, tempted by the power and money they could make from it. And in the end, Seo Joo-Heon found his relic, called the Arceus relic. The relic can provide all the knowledge about tombs and all types of relics in that world. Seo Joo-Heon was very happy. When he got the relic, he felt he could do anything. But it was too late. A new law was issued where people who had obtained some relics would have their use restricted. But because of Seo Joo-Heon's abilities, he was hired at a large company called TBM, with Kwon Tae-jun as CEO of the company. Seo Joo-Heon was hired as a tomb raider. He worked by stealing relics found by other people. The team led by Seo Joo-Heon made a lot of profits, making CEO Kwon the strongest relic user in the world. Seo Joo-Heon is considered trash because he works as CEO Kwon's subordinate, but Seo Joo-Heon still works hard to continue his life. But it all came to an end when CEO Kwon trapped Seo Joo-Heon's team with this impossible-to-complete mission. The snake attacked Seo Joo-Heon, but he managed to dodge and attack again the snake, which had eaten all his team members with stones. Seo Joo-Heon shouted in defiance of the snake, and he vowed to take revenge on CEO Kwon, who had trapped him. Just before the snake ate Seo Joo-Heon, a voice was heard from a relic. Seo Joo-Heon asked the voice. The relic seemed surprised when he found out that Seo Joo-Heon could hear it. Seo Joo-Heon shouted for help from the relic. The relic made Seo Joo-Heon realize that his body had been split into two. The voice spoke as if it knew all Seo Joo-Heon's suffering. Seo Joo-Heon was very angry about this and again blamed CEO Kwon for making him what he is today. A dazzling light caught their attention. A crow appeared from the light and said that Seo Joo-Heon was worthy of the title of king. Everything went dark, before finally Seo Joo-Heon woke up with his body intact. Seo Joo-Heon was shocked when he saw his body return to normal after previously being split into two when fighting the snake monster. Seo Joo-Heon is in the police questioning room. He is still thinking about all the events that happened when the police shouted angrily because Seo Joo-Heon never answered a simple question about his name. Seo Joo-Heon accidentally heard the words of the policeman next to him, who said that 2025 is known as the year when people don't go home. Seo Joo-Heon was shocked when he found out that he was back alive and went to the past, namely 15 years ago. Seo Joo-Heon looks for a calendar to confirm his assumptions and finds a board with the words January 1, 2025. Seo Joo-Heon is really confused now. Seo Joo-Heon looked to his side and saw a high school boy looking at him with an annoyed look. Seo Joo-Heon just remembered that he had fought with a drunk high school boy before. Now he and the boy were at the police station for an examination. Seo Joo-Heon still doesn't believe everything. Seo Joo-Heon is shocked again by his thoughts. This year is the year where tombs will start appearing and the year where relics are still unknown to many people. Seo Joo-Heon has the ambition to collect all the relics that exist with the help of the knowledge he had in his previous life. Seo Joo-Heon felt he could collect all the powerful relics before anyone else found them. Seo Joo-Heon smiles happily at his wit, and the journey of Seo Joo-Heon, who returns to his old life 15 years ago, will begin with his ambition to collect all the powerful relics that Seo Joo-Heon will encounter later. After the whole world knew about the existence and power of the relic, Seo Joo-Heon thought that nothing could surprise him anymore. But today is different. Firstly, Seo Joo-Heon did not expect that there would be a tomb that would cause his team so much difficulty. Second, the final mission was a trap that had been prepared by Kwon Tae-jun. Lastly, right before Seo Joo-Heon actually died, he went back to the past, exactly 15 years ago. Even though Seo Joo-Heon doesn't understand why this happened, he has the ambition to collect all the relics before anyone else can do it. A screaming voice was heard from beside Seo Joo-Heon now. He was being scolded by a woman who saw him daydreaming, even though Seo Joo-Heon was being interrogated now. The woman continued to scold Seo Joo-Heon for hitting her child and blamed Seo Jooheon if her child was sick. Seo Joo-Heon didn't want to get involved in this troublesome problem. Even though it was now 15 years ago, Seo Joo-Heon still remembers very well when the child asked him to fight, because he didn't want the problem to last long. Seo Joo-Heon apologized and asked for relief from the fees they asked for from him. Seo Joo-Heon still doesn't have any money now, and Seo Joo-Heon also doesn't have any means now. He is poor and has no income. Seo Joo-Heon ignored the woman again and ended up getting a hard slap from her. But somehow Seo Joo-Heon managed to ward off the slap that was about to fly at him. He then shouted back at the woman who was about to slap him. Seo Joo-Heon explained that it was the woman's child who started the fight with him and mocked the woman for turning a blind eye to the mistakes her child had made. The woman's son was about to throw a punch at Seo Joo-Heon's face, but with quick reflexes Seo Joo-Heon was able to avoid the blow. Seo Joo-Heon grabbed the child's hand and slammed it directly onto the floor hard, causing the child pain. Seo Joo-Heon did not expect that his body had become stronger and lighter now. Right after that, all the police who saw broke up Seo Joo-Heon's fight with the child. Seo Joo-Heon then admitted that he had nothing now to give and told the police to put him in jail. The woman didn't seem to think that Seo Joo-Heon would rather go to prison than pay the ransom. Seo Joo-Heon glanced at the woman, then Seo Joo-Heon thought that criminal records were no longer that important, because when the relic appeared, the laws in this world would become irregular and chaotic. Seo Joo-Heon thought that he had to quickly get out of this prison and immediately find all the relics. But when Seo Joo-Heon was lost in his thoughts, suddenly he saw writing in front of his eyes. Seo Joo-Heon hit himself on the head to get rid of the writing, but it didn't work. Seo Joo-Heon finally read the writing: a lowly pickpocket who can't even wield a shovel. Confused, Seo Joo-Heon started to get emotional and blamed the crow for making him see strange writing in front of his eyes. Seo Joo-Heon shouted for the crow, but it was not a crow that appeared before his eyes, but a skill window that looked like a game. Angry, Seo Joo-Heon hit the skill window, but he failed to do so. Another window appeared with the words "New Quest." Because of his noise, Seo Joo-Heon was reprimanded by the police guard, but he was confused because the police could not see the window in front of him. Seo Joo-Heon tried his skill, namely, at a distance of 1 meter. Seo Joo-Heon could see the details of the object, the same as when he used to hold the Arceus relic. Seo Joo-Heon knew that all his skills had changed into the skill window, and he still had to look for other skills. Seo Joo-Heon is very confident in his very useful skills, but he doesn't know what the crow is planning. Not long after that, Seo Joo-Heon was called by his friend, who turned out to be a detective. Seo Joo-Heon's friend managed to free himself, Detective Kim Jeon-woo was the adopted older brother of Seo Joo-Heon when he was an orphan. The detective chatted with Seo Joo-Heon for a while before finally Seo Joo-Heon asked something. Seo Joo-Heon asked his brother if there were any unreasonable reports about mystical powers, but the detective didn't know what Seo Joo-Heon was talking about and told him to go home and rest. Even though tombs have started to appear, they haven't had a serious impact because relic users haven't appeared yet. Seo Joo-Heon is enthusiastic about looking for relics again, but he has no money while the new relic will be in Europe or America. When Seo Joo-Heon was still thinking about his problem, he was confronted by a group of thugs, but Seo Joo-Heon just gave them a smile, not knowing what was on Seo Joo-Heon's mind at that time. The thugs were shocked when Seo Joo-Heon acted as if he was challenging them and forced them to submit to the thugs. The name of the thug in blue is Park Kyung-tae. He was a thug, but now he works as an art broker together with his older sister and becomes a troublemaker. Back when Seo Joo-Heon was still in school and needed quick cash, he worked for Park Kyung-tae, but that job turned into a prison, making Seo Joo-Heon have to work with him until he reached his mid-20s. Seo Joo-Heon was treated cruelly and threatened him with not giving Seo Joo-Heon a salary, forcing him to work like a dog for them. Another man shouted and cursed at Seo Joo-Heon, and with his anger peaking, Seo Joo-Heon hit the man with dark blonde hair until he was knocked out. Seo Joo-Heon replied to their insults and made the thugs not accept it. Seo Joo-Heon smiled and prepared to beat them for what they did to him before. Seo Joo-Heon prepared to take revenge. The thugs laughed disparagingly at Seo Joo-Heon, who wanted to fight with them. Right after that, Park Kyung-tae moved to hit Seo Joo-Heon, but Seo Joo-Heon, who was faster than him, hit Park hard right in the face. It didn't stop there. Park, who was still having trouble getting back up, was kicked using Seo Joo-Heon's knee, causing his head to leak. The other thugs looked in horror at Seo Joo-Heon and Park Kyung-tae's fight. Then they attacked Seo Joo-Heon at the same time. Seo Joo-Heon blocked all their blows and threw a counter-punch, making them all hurt. Seo Joo-Heon was happy when he managed to make the thugs lie on the ground. Park Kyung-tae took a knife from under his clothes, but Seo Joo-Heon, who saw this, was shocked because what was in Park Kyung-tae's hand was not a knife but a relic. However, Seo Joo-Heon managed to digest the situation because most of the relics attracted the attention of others by creating large tombs, but some of the relics chose to hide among the population. Park Kyung-tae attacked Seo Joo-Heon with the relic, but Seo Joo-Heon quickly avoided it and slammed Park to the ground, then threatened his neck with the relic, which was now controlled by Seo Joo-Heon. The other thugs seemed worried about his boss. Seo Joo-Heon then channeled his power into the relic, and the relic allowed Seo Joo-Heon to see other people's internal organs. Just as the two thugs threw their punches, Seo Joo-Heon moved very quickly to slash the two thugs. The two thugs screamed in pain, and Seo Joo-Heon threatened them to give him money if they didn't want to die now. Finally, the thugs were afraid and complied with Seo Joo-Heon's request to give him money. In a tall building, you can hear a woman who is very angry because Seo Joo-Heon hurt the thugs and even gave Seo Joo-Heon money. Meanwhile, Park Kyung-tae, who was angry, argued that Seo Joo-Heon had become very strong for no reason. Park Kyung-tae then admitted that he had given all his money to Seo Joo-Heon because he was afraid of the threats given by Seo Joo-Heon. Seo Joo-Heon saw a gold statue in his hand. The thugs begged Seo Joo-Heon not to take the statue, but Seo Joo-Heon still took it and left without listening to all the thugs' pleas. Park Kyung-tae's older sister told him to take back the items taken by Seo Joo-Heon no matter what. He wanted the gold statue in Seo Joo-Heon's hands to return to him. In a jewelry shop, Seo Joo-Heon asked the price of the gold statue he got from the thugs before, and it turned out that the statue was not worth much. Seo Joo-Heon felt disappointed because he would not get his money from selling the statue. Seo Joo-Heon came home with the golden statue, but when Seo Joo-Heon looked more carefully, the statue gave off a purple aura which turned into a skill window. Seo Joo-Heon seemed disturbed by the skill window in front of his eyes. Seo Joo-Heon shook the statue several times while thinking about what was actually inside the statue. Seo Joo-Heon then destroyed the statue using the relic he got before, and sure enough, a bottle filled with water fell from inside the statue. It was a bottle of water that had drug content in it. Seo Joo-Heon continued walking while looking at the bottle before finally he called Detective Jeon Woo and asked for information about the report to track drugs, because according to information the reporter would get a lot of money from his report. In an office room, you can see a woman who is Park's older sister, the thug that Seo Joo-Heon met previously, who is in an unstable emotional condition because the person on the other end of the phone is blaming her for trying to take all the profits. The door opened and Park was seen with a neatly dressed man from the police. His older brother was shocked when he found out that their drug business had been uncovered by the police. When the detective brought the evidence, Park's older brother tried to avoid it and didn't want to admit what he had done. Not only that, the detective also knew about the warehouse they were using in Gyeonggi-do. Park's older brother still tried to avoid it, but the detective overheard him with a call about a report that 600 drugs were found in every painting they had at the Hwaseongi Art Gallery. The police had put handcuffs on the woman's hands and the detective only responded with a smile. Meanwhile, in their warehouse, Seo Joo-Heon and several members of the police tried to open the warehouse door which was still locked with a code. But thanks to Seo Joo-Heon, who still has memories of the warehouse code from his past, Seo Joo-Heon can open the warehouse door very easily. After the door opened, Seo Joo-Heon and the police entered. They started checking around the warehouse and found more drugs inside. The police praised Seo Joo-Heon's good work. Seo Joo-Heon asked the police to connect him with a detective at Park's brother's office. Seo Joo-Heon asked to talk to the arrested woman. A moment after Seo Joo-Heon spoke, the woman recognized Seo Joo-Heon's voice and blamed Seo Joo-Heon about what happened to her and why she was arrested like this. It was all Seo Joo-Heon's plan. On his way home, Seo Joo-Heon was walking alone. There was no one around him. Then his phone rang. Detective Jeon Woo gives a message about the money he will receive. Seo Joo-Heon is very happy to see the amount listed on his message. 100 million won. Seo Joo-Heon walks with a smile and a happy face knowing that he will now get a lot of money. Seo Joo-Heon returned to thinking about his plan for revenge against CEO Kwon, who had made him suffer in his previous life. He promised to find all the relics before CEO Kwon found them. However, his reverie was interrupted when he looked straight ahead. The house is gone, replaced with a mound of earth that almost resembled a hill. Seo Joo-Heon, who was confused when he saw his house was gone, could only stare silently at the mound of earth which almost swallowed up the buildings around it. So what about the fate of Seo Joo-Heon's house? Why did his house suddenly disappear? Seo Joo-Heon was still shocked to see that the apartment he lived in had been covered by the presence of a large tomb. The tomb covered not only Seo Joo-Heon's apartment, but the buildings around it were also unable to function because they were covered by the tomb made by the relic. Everyone who lives there panics and the atmosphere becomes chaotic because their place of residence is now gone. Seo Joo-Heon can only see the panic. The appearance of the tomb will cause an extraordinary increase in power around the tomb, causing great disturbance. Back in his previous life, Seo Joo-Heon received a call from his roommate saying that the apartment they lived in had disappeared. But at that time, Seo Joo-Heon didn't have time to take care of this because Seo Joo-Heon was still working under Park and didn't have time to check on him. But when Seo Joo-Heon returned to his apartment, everything looked normal. His apartment was still standing firmly without the slightest damage. Seo Joo-Heon knows that if the tomb has disappeared, then someone managed to defeat the tomb and take the relic inside. Seo Joo-Heon looked for the person who had finished the tombs among the crowd of panicked residents, because the only way to get rid of the tombs was to conquer them and take the relics inside. Seo Joo-Heon looked around him when he heard a voice he recognized. When he looked at the source of the sound, he saw his roommate who was talking to soldiers. But instead the police pointed their guns at Seo Joo-Heon's friend, causing Seo Joo-Heon to act by kicking the soldier's chin. Seo Joo-Heon greets his roommate, Kim Dong-hyun. The soldier who was kicked by Seo Joo-Heon gets back up with difficulty because he received a hard kick from Seo Joo-Heon and apologizes to Seo Joo-Heon and his friend. Seo Joo-Heon asked what actually happened there. When Seo Joo-Heon asked about the tomb, the soldier didn't want to provide any more information. Seo Joo-Heon, who was annoyed because he didn't get the information he wanted, threatened the soldier, and after several threats were given, the soldier finally wanted to provide the information that Seo Joo-Heon wanted to hear. After learning that the soldier had been given orders from his superiors to explore the tombs, Seo Joo-Heon seemed satisfied with what he heard. Seo Joo-Heon left the soldier and was about to leave before his friend stopped him and asked what they were really talking about, but Seo Joo-Heon didn't want to answer clearly and left his friend. In another part of the tomb there is someone named Linda Walker who is talking to someone on her phone about the tombs. And from the information that Linda got, it seems that the Korean government doesn't know about the existence of tombs and what they are. Someone who was talking to Linda asked her to take the relic that was in the tombs. Linda seemed to agree and hung up the phone. Right after Linda hung up the phone, she met a team from Japan named Abe Kiyoshi. Abe asked Linda who was the messenger from America and said that the team from America was skilled at stealing relics. However, Linda avoided it and said that she only wanted to return the relic to the international police, and said that her mission here was only to ensure the safety of the population regarding the relic. Abe, who doesn't want to lose, also wants to take the relic in the tomb, just like Linda. While they were talking, Seo Joo-Heon eavesdropped on their conversation and recognized the two people. They were envoys from America and Japan. Seo Joo-Heon, who managed to eavesdrop, found out that the tombs were scattered all over the world, and the existence of the relics was only known by America and Japan at first. Then they started classifying the relics and taking relics from other countries with the information they got first. But Seo Joo-Heon didn't want them to get what they wanted. But Seo Joo-Heon didn't know what the two of them were doing. They're just chatting, and Seo Joo-Heon finally took the initiative and approached the tombs. Shortly after Seo Joo-Heon approached the tombs, there was a strange seal on the ground. It turned out that the writing was a tomb glyphs made by relics so that they could be recognized by others. Tomb glyphs contain about what relics are in the tombs and what traps are in them. All information about the tombs can actually be known only from the tomb glyphs in the tombs. When Seo Joo-Heon started interacting with the tomb glyphs, a new skill window was added. This time the skill was linguistic, allowing him to understand, listen to sounds, and be able to translate the language of the existing relics. Seo Joo-Heon went to follow the path of the tomb glyphs under the bridge with the dry river. There was a strange symbol on one of the pillars supporting the bridge. And when Seo Joo-Heon slashed his knife relic into the symbol, the tomb glyphs lit up brightly and created a huge light that penetrated the night sky in the city, with a very thick red aura that spread widely around where Seo Jooheon was. What really happened to Seo Jooheon? Why does that symbol make such a big light? The tomb glyphs immediately lit up when Seo Jooheon slashed them, and a warning window appeared before his eyes notifying Seo Jooheon. Right after the warning window disappeared, a very dazzling light appeared from underground, piercing up to the sky and attracting the attention of everyone who saw it. The envoys from Japan and America knew that the tombs were open. They lied to the Korean army not to follow them and protect the city residents. The two messengers immediately ran towards the light. After they arrived in front of the light, there was a large hole in the ground. They confirmed it by throwing stones to check the depth of the entrance to the tomb. After they finished checking the two of them, one of them didn't think twice and threw himself into the hole. Seo Jooheon, who was already inside, could tell that the two of them had followed him into the tombs. Then with Seo Joo-Heon's abilities he activated the trap in the tombs to hinder their journey. On the other hand, the two messengers managed to enter the tombs, but they were suddenly shocked when they heard a strange sound from inside the tombs. The sound was getting bigger and seemed closer to the two of them. And sure enough, a big wave attacked them. The two messengers looked panicked because they didn't expect this big wave to come. Because they weren't ready and panicked, the wave managed to roll them over and take them somewhere. Meanwhile, Seo Jooheon, who had been exploring the tombs, found a light from a room inside the tombs. Inside that place, Seo Jooheon saw a pool of water that was quite large and lit up. Seo Jooheon approached the water and threw his relic knife into it. As soon as Seo Jooheon threw the relic, a large white snake appeared from the water. The snake opened its mouth and told Seo Jooheon to choose between the gold and silver knife in its mouth. Seo Jooheon had to look for his knife from the two knives in the snake's mouth. Seo Jooheon just smiled when he heard that. The relic in this tomb called the Gold and Silver Axes. It's based off of a famous folktale. It originates from one of Aesop's fables called Mercury and the Woodcutter. This story is very well known in other countries, so it is not surprising that in a previous life, this relic was very easy for other countries to obtain. Seo Jooheon answered that the two knives in the snake's mouth were not his. The snake seemed surprised and interested in Seo Jooheon. The snake then opened its mouth again, and now there was only one knife in its mouth. Seo Jooheon knows that the knife is his, but Seo Jooheon knows again that if he answers, "That's my knife," then he will get the knife back and also get the relic, the gold and silver axes. But Seo Jooheon wanted something else and asked to check the knife first. And as soon as Seo Jooheon held the handle of the knife, he slashed the snake's mouth with a knife in his hand. The snake looked shocked and in pain. The snake did not expect that Seo Jooheon would hurt him when Seo Jooheon was able to complete the trial given by the snake. Seo Jooheon also said that he could never trust existing relics, because according to Seo Jooheon, there was no guarantee that he would get a good prize after he completed the trial given to him. The snake was shocked when Seo Jooheon knew information that no one should know. In a previous life, the owner of the relic, the gold and silver axes, turned into a cruel murderer. Many lives were lost because of this relic. Seo Jooheon knew that the snake would give him a fake relic that had a curse imbued in it. Then Seo Jooheon took a step and jumped on the snake's head and stabbed his knife there. The snake looked in pain and tried to stop Seo Jooheon from hurting him. In fact, after successfully finding out the location of the relic in the tomb, which is filled with traps, and if you can pass the trial given by the relic, then the relic will give the user strength, and after that, the relic and the user will form a bond. But because the relic always harbors deep hatred deep into humans, the relic will make the user suffer pain. Because of this, the user of the healing type relic holds the power, and that is one of the reasons Seo Jooheon was exploited by CEO Kwon. Seo Jooheon didn't need a bond like that with a relic that would only end up bringing him loss. Seo Jooheon stabbed the snake deeper and made the snake really hurt. Seo Jooheon intends to use his dominance and force the relic to obey him without causing any harm to him. The snake hissed in pain as Seo Jooheon deepened his thrusts and added more dominance into his thrusts. Seo Jooheon released more dominance until the knife was almost completely plunged into the snake. The user needs talent to be able to use the relic, because if a user's talent is not enough, then the relic will exploit the user. The user's talents are divided into three. The first is society, namely talent that can develop a good relationship with the relic. The second is dominance, namely the talent to make the relic obedient to its user. And finally, compatibility, namely the strong relationship between the relic and its user that cannot be separated. Most people will choose to increase their society talents because it is the easiest way to use relics and get full benefits from them. But ironically, when relics start to befriend the user, they will start to emit an aura that poisons the user and will make them sick. That's why Seo Joo-Heon never wanted to use society as a way to use relics. Seo Joo-Heon threatened the snake. He would destroy the snake if it didn't want to surrender itself to Seo Jooheon. The snake seemed afraid of the threat given by Seo Jooheon. The snake did not expect that someone like Seo Jooheon would want to destroy the relic. After that, the snake lit up, producing a dazzling light, and completely transformed into a relic, the golden and silver axes, which looked like an axe with silver and gold colors and had a motif on the blade. The skill window again appeared in front of Seo Jooheon. This time he got a new skill, namely tomb excavation, which allowed him to increase his knowledge about tombs. Then after the skill window disappeared, Seo Jooheon got a new title, namely the relic abuser, which increased his dominance ability. Seo Jooheon looked a little annoyed with the crow who gave him this title. Then not long after that, Seo Jooheon heard someone's voice behind him. Seo Jooheon hid himself between the tomb walls when the two people who turned out to be the two envoys who had followed him before were here. One of the messengers did the same thing as Seo Jooheon did before, but they were too late because the relic there had already fallen into Seo Jooheon's hands. Seo Jooheon thought about finishing them off now, but a notification window appeared telling him that the useful life of the weapon he was holding was almost over. Seo Jooheon gave up his intention to finish them off when he found out the useful life of his weapon. The envoy from Japan seemed annoyed because the relic did not appear as stated in the prophecy. They began to suspect that the relic had been taken, which would bring big problems because the Koreans already knew about the relic. While they were talking, they suddenly heard something which turned out to be Seo Jooheon throwing a stone to attract their attention. Seo Jooheon only lured these two people because soon this tomb will collapse because Seo Jooheon managed to take the relic that was inside. Then with the power of the relic, Seo Jooheon closed the tomb and walked away calmly while the two people looked panicked because the tomb would collapse soon. Then in a place who doesn't know where, Seo Jooheon came out of the drain hole, and after he returned to his apartment, the tomb that previously covered the entire area had disappeared. The people there still seemed to be asking questions, but they immediately returned to their respective homes. Seo Jooheon called his friend's name and asked why his friend was daydreaming, but Seo Jooheon, who knew the cause, just walked casually back to his house. On the other hand, the envoy from Japan received a new prediction that someone from Korea had managed to get the relic before him. The envoy from Japan seemed annoyed because he was late in getting the information. The messenger looked angry and cursed at the person on the other end of the phone before he finally regained his composure and told him to be alert to the person who could take the relic, because the prediction said that that person would destroy this world. Returned with Seo Joo-Heon, who had been in his room and was still looking for information about the relic on the internet, and because of his linguistic abilities, he could understand other languages. When Seo Joo-Heon tried to find out about CEO Kwon, he couldn't find any information, before finally his friend came and was surprised because Seo Joo-Heon could understand the language of another country. Seo Joo-Heon asked his friend about TBM, but his friend didn't know. Seo Joo-Heon just remembered that Park Kyung-ju had an art gallery, and Seo Joo-Heon intended to use that as a way to get information about CEO Kwon.